So welcome everybody. Today we'll be talking about the state of the supply chain today with, sorry, let me get my controls going. So I will be your host today, Gail Haggerty. For those of you who know Netstock, you've probably come across me in Australia. I've been working with Netstock for just over 8 years now, and I'm the Global VP of Customer Success Operations. Today with us, we also have Jenny, Evgenya Kondratova. Sorry if I got that wrong. So Jenny's an experienced bilingual supply chain professional with a demonstrated history in working across a number of industries in supply chain optimization, demand planning, purchasing, warehouse operations. And she also has a master's degree in management and the certified in production and inventory management. We also have Scott with us today. Scott Githens is an inventory planner with Infrabuild, and Scott is also the president of the Australian Supply Chain Institute Operations Management Community Council, and is the supply and inventory planning manager at Infrabuild. Has numerous qualifications, a Bachelor of Arts, Logistics and Engineering Management, Human Resources, and also certified in Production and Inventory Management. And then we also have Etienne Zakupa, who is the Supply Chain Manager at one of our customers, Australis Food. And Etienne, if you could just give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I've been working at Australis for a few years, about 6 years, and started doing deliveries and in the warehouse, and then slowly climbed the ranks, and then now I'm National Supply Chain Manager there. And I have a Bachelor of Business specializing in economics and management. And that's it. It's about me.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so today we will be running through the agenda, talking about what life's like after COVID, really, and how we can help you reduce surplus and improve cash flow. So we'll have a conversation with Jenny, Scott, and Etienne, and then I'll do a brief demo, and then we'll have time for the Q&A. So that housekeeping again, all participants are muted, and please post your questions into the Q&A. And of course, this is being recorded, so we will send you out a recording after the webinar as well. So today's supply chain is it's been a rough ride the last few years, and during the pandemic, supply lead times extended throughout the supply chain, creating these knock-on effects of stockouts and reactionary bulk buying to replenish that. And now post-COVID, lead times are starting to return to normal. Businesses are seeing more normalised demand, although consumer expectations are super high at the moment. And this has now led to some businesses having surplus from that reactionary bulk buying, and more money tied up in their inventory than is necessary. So some of the key steps to better manage supply chain now and free up that cash flow is looking at sort of route planning, or considering your warehouse structure and distribution and where you're stocking things to meet that rising consumer expectations. Data-driven analytics, so utilising technology to plan and replenish, and freeing up time for your purchasing team and your demand planning team to actually dive into the data and get really good intelligent insights. Supplier relationship management is obviously key. Being able to monitor that, review and negotiate and build those relationships with your suppliers is really important. And continuous improvement and risk mitigation. So implementing predictive systems leveraging AI that's everywhere around at the moment. Every system seems to be introducing some form of AI, and using that to get a holistic overview of your inventory classification. To make sure that you've got the right products at the right time and be able to see those KPIs. So we'll start with a question, a quick poll. To what do you think our supply chain is back to normal post-pandemic? Ooh, okay. Answers are coming in thick and fast. Okay, we've got most people have responded now. And all right, so it's a pretty even split. With 44% of you saying yes and 48% saying no, and 7% unsure. So I think it depends on which industry you're in, and where your supply chain is actually based. So if you're ordering in from China or Europe, there's obviously still shipping delays and that kind of stuff. So interesting. Thank you. Share those results again. Can everybody see that or not? All right. So I'll ask Scott first. What's your thoughts on where we're at with the supply chain and where we go from here?
Pretty broad question. I'll start with where are we at in supply chain. So I think within the context of the poll, have we recovered from COVID? I think what we're seeing is essentially echoes and ripples. So, and for some industries, you actually almost have to go back to the GFC. What's happened is there's been a series of immediate shocks, which then cause disruption, which then causes a response, which then causes more disruption, which then causes a response. And I don't think we're out the other end of that. Some industries may feel closer than others, but I think there's also an effect of we're now changing some of the models or some of our supply chain configuration to respond to lessons learned from COVID, or lessons learned if I go far back as GFC. And you get second and third order magnitude impacts of that. So I think in some industries, it's a direct issue with COVID. Automotive, and Jenny can probably talk a bit to this around, there's certain parts that you can't get. So cars, you still can't get sometimes going directly back to COVID. Other industries where, and I've worked in, industrial products, building materials, government's stimulus packages drove building booms, which drove material shortages, which we're still working through. So there's a lot of, cause and effects, and it's all quite interrelated, but we're not back to steady state. As I said at the start, there are some industries that would argue steady state was pre-GFC. And they were still working through the GFC issues when COVID hit, and the good old days of, everything was like a pendulum. It just swung backwards and forwards. Everything worked on clockwork. You have to go, a long way back to get that. So that's my view. Where do we go next? I think it will be a while until, if ever, things get back to the good old days, inverted commas. And the trick is being able to configure a supply chain and configure almost a business strategy to sensibly cope with disruption without having so much latent investment and so much money sitting there that you're unaffordable. And then there's a balance between the two.
Great, thanks, Scott. And Jenny, I'll ask you the same question. Different industry to Scott. What's your perspective on where we're at and where we go from here?
Okay, I'm from automotive industry, and for us the latest trend is that yes, partially supply chain has recovered. If we're talking about recovery of the production lead time, for example, during COVID, some of our supply lead time was reaching up to 250 days, 250, and now it's got back to 60 or 90. And however, we're still getting impacted by component shortages for the critical chips and electrical components as well. And that's sometimes lead time is reaching up to like more than 365 days. So that's obviously a challenge. But we managed to live through this challenge and we accept the fact and we're just working through it very, very actively. So shipping lead time on the other end has been normalized as well. For us, during COVID, it was about 75 days on average to get containers out of Asia. Now it's 25 days because we do not need to waste time on the pre-planning the blank sailings, plus obviously container availability has improved. But however, the latest trend is that the blank sailings might be coming back in the next quarter. So we'll see how we go. The other thing, obviously, there was significant shift in availability for the air freight shipments, which we have been using actively as a business to ensure continuous supply during COVID time as well. So now it's more affordable. There is always space. So that's not a change. That's why from supply point of view, yes, there are some issues, but overall, it's not that intense anymore. And from our experience, basically, the daily focus for the planning team has shifted from actually getting the stock in, just constantly expediting from actually more now improving the visibility of demand, working with customers, managing back orders, managing demand going forward. So that was the main change that we have observed in the last year, actually, after like everything settled down for us from COVID. And the other thing is that obviously we have got another risk coming up, what we do with excess inventory that potentially might be accumulating if there will be slowdown in the market. So yes, the main change was shift of focus from getting the stock in, actually now the managing stock like in a more stable flow. So yeah, that's our role.
Thanks, Jenny. And the next question's for you as well. Do you agree that businesses today need to optimize their inventory? And I think you've probably answered that to meet the rising customer expectations and demand more than worrying about the bottom line.
Yes, 100%. So obviously business needs to have stock to sell. That's 100%. But the reality of the situation is that now businesses should be considering actually having, from switching from having single safety stock setting across all SKUs or depending on the class, actually have multiple different safety stock levels within the ABC classification as well. What I mean, for example, with an A class, you got certain products that are being supplied to the key customers who foresee growing demand. You can increase them. For those where you foresee that they will be drop out, obviously you can reduce them. And so for us, it's basically it's explore the whole avenue, working with our customers more closely, like including establishing SNOP meetings directly with customers between planning teams. So it's not only sales team or key account manager who needs to be managing the customer's expectations, demand. Actually, we are holding sales operations planning meetings with our key customers now and the main outcome of that process is that obviously we encourage from our customers to provide a forecast. We evaluate this forecast, whether it can be used in our planning system and our forecasting software, and we provide them feedback so they could adjust it going forward. And once they made the adjustment, it's improving visibility of our demand. That's when we're becoming more flexible in actually having the right stock at the higher levels if we need to, comparing to those that we do not need. So that's, that's my answer.
I muted myself. All right, thanks, Jenny. And Etienne, I'll bring you into the conversation now. So Etienne, you're a customer of Netstock and you've recently done a case study of the benefits that you've seen from introducing Netstock in your business. What are some of the real world and perhaps unexpected benefits you saw from using a predictive system like Netstock?
Yeah, so first of all, Netstock has been really life-changing for us from where we were to where we are now. It's just been a big difference. One of the biggest differences we seem to have better communication between the sales team and the purchasing team because the decision that we make we can show them the real data, and we can say this is we can show them the projection curve. We can show them the when it's coming, when it will be out of stock. So that's really been helpful. So making decisions based on real data. We've also seen a big upskill in our team. Instead of spending a lot of time formatting Excel spreadsheets, they really become data analysts. Like they analyze data, they spend a lot more time analyzing information and making actions based on those analyses, rather than spending a lot of time just putting colors in Excel spreadsheets and fixing them when there is a problem. So that's been a big one of the things that we were not expecting. Another important benefit that we didn't see is that we are able to plan with our supplier much easier. We can give them better visibility for the next 12 months. We only used to work 6 months ahead, but now with Netstock, we are able to work 12 months ahead, and that's been really helpful for our supplier. They can plan, and that's reduced our stockouts a lot, because a lot of the stockouts that we had were based on no production and placing orders too late. So yeah, that's been big benefits. And another one would be that we've reduced our inventory quite a bit, and so we store everything in-house now, and our warehouse team are much happier because they don't have full cluttered warehouses. They have much more space, and they're able to put better processes in place.
Okay, fantastic. It sounds like it's been a huge success for you, Tim. So that's brilliant. So Scott, back to you. I'm going to ask you about organizations that are dealing with this post-pandemic inventory issues. It may not necessarily be surplus. It might be more about getting the right mix of products, as Jenny mentioned. What would you recommend to those people to help improve the visibility and getting that right mix of products?
I mean, there's various different ways of cutting it, but there's some underlying principles that they normally apply, and I think one of them is, and the conversation often gets, I wouldn't say hijacked, but it gets funneled very quickly into safety stock, and I think that's a mistake. One of the challenges is if you want a sensible level of working capital to meet your customer service targets. So I suppose I should start with that. It's yes, you have a clear view of what your customer service target is. Otherwise, you don't really know where to start. But you have a certain amount of working capital that you're using to hit your customer service target. There will be a whole chunk of inventory that you have in the system, which will be pipeline stock or cycle stock. So that's actually a result of how often you purchase something, or how often you make something, or what your lead times are, what your batch sizes are. And that can drive a fair amount, if not the majority, of inventory in the system. So if you're looking to optimize your inventory from a working capital perspective and get best return on your investment whilst meeting your customer service targets, the interesting question is, if you have the flexibility, and some industries are more flexible than others, do you have your supply in the right spot? Are you making it as often as you should? Are you making it too often? Are you using sea freight because it's really cheap relative? Not an expert on sea freight, but maybe you could do some air freight on the other extreme and reduce your pipeline. So it's not just all about optimizing within a safety stock setting. Jenny hit the nail on the head as well around. So you do, assuming you're not a make-to-order business, you have to take a guess at what you think the customer's going to buy before they buy it. We call that technically a forecast because it sounds much more certain. But you can be quite clever, and with good tools like Netstock, you can start to stratify that. So it's not a single service level for all customers, for all products. You can segment your products into importance or revenue, or similar. You can segment your customers. You can also, there are tools these days that get quite clever. One of the challenges with safety stock algorithms are they assume a normal distribution of error, but they also drive a safety stock quantity based on the absolute error. So if you've got a forecast biased, you're always over forecasting. You want a safety stock system smart enough to go, well, you got an error, but there's no point holding safety stock on the ground when you're already over forecasting. So there's more sophisticated tools out there that it's not the old, safety stock that you could build in Excel and get it pretty close. So that's where I'd start. It's really understanding your service levels, targets, understand what your market needs. Start with your holistic view of inventory. Don't just go straight to safety stock. Get that right, and then you sort of lay your safety stock over the top. And with some of the AI tools and the level of data visibility, you can get quite granular. You don't have to. It's not a blunt weapon anymore.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. And Jenny, what's your to-dos for optimizing inventory? You mentioned the S&OP cycles that you're doing with your customers, and perhaps some sort of dynamic demand management from your customer, getting that information from your customers.
Okay, so practical hint. So if we separate inventory to real inventory that we need and surplus, so I'll cover both of them so separately. So first one, obviously real, what we do, just a hint. For example, planning team in our business, we review back orders daily. It means that every day we run a report that's showing comparison with what has actually fallen on the order overnight. So we do not use the number. Obviously, number is the number, but the mix is changing every day. And after the team would normally go and investigate. So first question is a demand issue. Has this been forecasted? If it has not been forecasted, demand planner will reach out to the salesperson. Okay, that's your customer, such and such and such. Place this unexpected order. Key point, is this going to continue? If it's because that's what we're looking for as part of that exercise, so we don't get caught again in the same issue 2 months later. So is this going to continue? Yes, no. Demand being adjusted. Supply in the meantime, supply planner is reacting, replenishing, expediting. So daily review. So first to do, daily review back orders. Second, expediting and de-expediting activities are run weekly in our business. So basically every week we run the report showing, okay, this is going to be our excess stock. We're going to be pushing them out after consultation within the business, because it might happen that current demand in the system is showing, okay, that we are going to have excess inventory. But for key products that are being sold to key customers, maybe they're planning some promotions 3 or 4 months in advance. Come back as part of the internal S&OP cycle, come back to key account management, sales team. Other question, they come back with confirmation. Yes, they're running promotion or they're not running promotion. Come back to supplier. Do not waste your time. Do not waste your resources. Do not waste your capacity for these items. Push them out. Produce these items. So that's proactive vendor management. So that's to make sure that we have the right stock that we're selling here. About surplus inventory. So basically, and actually, we have tried this process. Not tried. We have been doing it for a number of years, and it's very effective. Process set up monthly and weekly meetings, basically with the key stakeholders. Have all your breakdown. We're using ABC classification. We're using 9 different classes to classify our inventory. For example, we classify spare parts, marketing stuff separately, production components, so they do not create the noise in the system, because they will be the one who will come up with the regular sales with all the large dollar values against them. So they're being managed separately. I'm talking about S class, which is slow moving and obsolete items. Run the list of items, go through them. So first, make sales team and brand and commercial, depending on what the company structure is, identify the items that need to remain in stock due to whatever reason. Maybe they're part of the range or something. Remove them from that. They do not need to be part of the review. Change them to C class and keep replenishing. After that, next category, obsolete items or out of dated items that need to be scrapped going forward. Come up with the list, get internal approval, get them signed off. And next step, obviously, some items can be sent back to supplier due to some reasons. Maybe suppliers, they need them to produce their stock for the other customers. But the key point here is that have this monthly plan that ties up to the whole net working capital target. For example, if your swap inventory holding is 5 million and you need to reduce your net working capital by 2 million, have breakdown of that 2 million, what you can actually do with the slow moving stock. And after that, review it every month, every week, depending on what the requirement is. And after that, yes, you will end up somewhere, not necessarily you will get rid of the all 2 million stock, but at least if you get rid of half of it, so it will still be improvement. So yes, that's our experience.
Right. Yes, excellent. Thank you. Back to you, Etienne. You mentioned the improvements that you got with Netstock, and I think in the case study it said you reduced your inventory by 35% in just 6 months. So it's an amazing result. What has that meant for your team, for your company, in terms of what you could do with that additional capital?
Yeah, so amazing results, better than what we were expecting for sure. 35% reduction, which was roughly about $3 million. So definitely our finance department and executive management were very pleased with that. But more than that, it was more about optimizing the inventory. It was more about having the right stock for the right people at the right time. So not only did we reduce our inventory, but we kept the same fill rate. We increased customer satisfaction, which was really our goal from the start. Really increased customer satisfaction to give us that edge over our competitors. Customer satisfaction has been a big problem during COVID, so this was really our main focus. But in terms of cash flow benefits, obviously, incredible cash flow benefits. Reducing inventory. About 80% of our products is frozen, so they are stored in freezers, which are really expensive to build. We moved from having full warehouses and already using external storage, which are quite costly and difficult for our warehouse team to handle, to now store everything in-house. We've cancelled plans to build bigger warehouses, bigger freezers. So we're getting quotes from builders and we canceled those. So doesn't mean that they're going to be cancelled forever, but it just means they'll be delayed maybe in a year's time or 18 months time. But that's been incredible. So yeah, definitely a lot of benefits through the whole company. They had a ripple effects through the whole company for everyone. So
fantastic. That is such great news, Etienne. I'm so pleased that Netstock's been able to help your company so much. So the next question I'm going to ask it to Jenny and then to Scott. In your experience, how can companies use predictive software for inventory analysis to improve that optimization that we've been talking about?
Okay, so from our experience, so it provides better visibility of demand. If you know what you're going to sell in the pipeline for next like 6 from actually we're using currently 12 months plus time frame. So obviously, if you got better visibility of demand, you know what will become obsolete, what you need to expedite, what you need to de-expedite. The other thing is that with better visibility of demand, you can actually using targeted approach. You can focus your efforts on the key items for the business and do not waste your efforts on items that are not important. And obviously, it allows you to use multiple safety stock settings that Scott has mentioned about previously. So it gives you a lot of options actually where you can play, because where you can play with them, you can have more items that are extremely volatile, like high safety stock holdings and everything. It means that technically you can increase your safety stock holding, place 5 months worth of orders, and after that bring them back. So in long term, your net working capital is not impacted, but you are going to coming out of the the current supply crisis. The other thing that I would like to mention is that you can, with better visibility that gives you predictive software, you can actually react quicker to all the changes, no matter what, whether you need to bring it forward or pull it backwards. Doesn't matter, you can see it. And the other thing, it also gives you real life projection of what is going to happen. For example, your key supplier for 50% of your SKU suddenly has got capacity issues that will last 3 months. You can see what the impact is going to be on the lost sales during next 6 months period. You can see it straight away. So that's how good current softwares are at the moment. That's the flexibility that you can actually achieve. Before, you would spend 1 day trying to go and collate all the data in Excel and run all the analysis, but now it's actually available straight away. So that would be the best use from my perspective.
Great, thanks, Jenny. And Scott, your experience with the inventory analysis software?
Yeah, sure. It's a bit hard to top what Jenny said. She really encapsulated most of it. Full disclosure as well. So, my current company, we're just dipping our toes in what I would call proper predictive / AI now. So if you argue that a sales forecast is predictive, then yes, everyone's got forecasting tools. They're running statistical forecasts. So I'm assuming the question's more around clever AI, that sort of stuff. So pretty what Jenny said. It will give us the ability, and we're starting projects in this space, but still quite early days. The ability to, at a much more micro level, manage large amounts of data points, have the machine understand what the humans have been doing previously, and planners hate when I say this, and I used to be a planner. There's so many decisions that people make day to day that are actually quite codifiable. It's actually quite horrifying when you sit down and say, okay, why did you decide what you decided, and how do you do it next time? And 80+% is pretty easy to codify with a reasonable AI or predictive tool. The magic that the planner brings is the 20% that's really hard. And so you get these tools, you plug them in on top of your systems, and they're doing that 80% of the basic decision making that a planner used to have to do, or in some businesses the decisions weren't being made at all, so you're getting an instant improvement there. And you're freeing up your planners to then deal with the more difficult decisions, as well as tuning the tool. And there's a whole sort of life cycle you go through as a planner, moving from spreadsheets to MRP2 to AI optimizing style. The other area that we're looking at in AI, which personally I'm very excited about because I've been the subject of a lot of pain in the past, is actually master data. So again, depending on your company, you can have 50, 100,000 materials at locations, all have to be maintained in ERP or something. There's some really good AI coming out that actually at the least looks at your existing master data and says, based on everything else that's already in there, these materials look weird. All the other materials that you've called brand X have a description of a certain syntax, but these brand X have a really weird description. That doesn't make sense. You may want to look at it. And where they're getting to as well is then going one step further and going, and by the way, if you tell me to fix it in a predictable manner, the AI will then just fix it for you. So it'll find the pattern, go through pattern recognition, find the error in the master data, fix it, and that can take a lot of time. That again, we've currently got people having to grind through that work, and at least in our business, it's not a cost saving in people. It's actually no one's doing the work right now. So we struggle with the impact of poor master data rather than the cost of manually maintaining master data. So if I can get a tool that takes away that impact, then that's brilliant, because there's so much cost and waste in just maintaining master data errors.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting times with the AI front. There's a lot coming, and I don't know if it's scary or exciting, but a bit of both.
Both.
All right, I'm just conscious of the time. I've got a little demo to do, and I want to leave time for some question and answers. We've got a couple more questions here, though. So it was mentioned earlier that we should be looking at your supply chain in a holistic view, and in Australia or Asia Pacific landscape, how important it is to have the right data and metrics readily available. I think we've kind of covered this, but being able to have that supplier negotiation and keep customer satisfaction high is really important. I'll send this question to Jenny first. How important do you think it is to have that relationship, have the data available to have that build those relationships?
Okay, obviously, if you don't have the data, you can't measure supplier's performance. If you do not measure supplier's performance, at some stage you will be missing out on stock because you will not become a priority anymore for them. So the data that we're referring to here is obviously production lead time from suppliers. That's actually the time when we place the order, when we want this to be shipped, any changes that were happening in between, and plus vendor forecasts. And as Ian mentioned earlier, in the webinar about providing suppliers a forecast, because you can actually run the same mini S&OP cycles with your suppliers when you provide a forecast. And after that, that is based on the forecast from your customers in your system. And after that, they provide you feedback as part of your regular meetings that, okay, that didn't happen when I'm going to be taking stock. That's actually making the whole supply chain working from end to end when you actually feed information from your customers through your planning system to your suppliers. Coming back to the data, so as part of your vendor, obviously, management programs and projects and everything, every business should have a vendor scorecard. That's where suppliers are being assessed based on those 360-degree view, which might include delivery performance, quality, capabilities for the new product development, other things that are important for the business, plus ethical sourcing, whether they complied with the ethical sourcing programs and everything. So now that's the new edition. So yes, and basically, if you work with your suppliers and you actually provide to them fair assessment, and you have got your data ready, and you can provide the data to them and justify your scores and everything every time, so that's actually builds the relationship with them, because majority of suppliers, they want to improve, they want to support your business, and they want to grow with you. And if you actually run the process and provide the data, so it should be working well for both parties. So, yeah, that's.
Great, thanks, Jenny. Really nice insights there. Scott, to you, same question.
Oh, again, difficult to add beyond what Jenny said. Other than if you don't have data, or you've got some emotions and opinions, how can you have a sensible, structured discussion that gets to a mutually agreeable outcome if you're just sitting at the table or the Zoom meeting these days with opinions? So, I mean, you almost see it. The starting point is the data. If you don't have that, you can't even start. Beyond that, there's a whole bunch of other things that you need to think about in the change management space. But without data, I think there's a Deming or someone, God, I trust, everyone else has to bring data. Something like that.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Scott. Etienne, what's your take on that one? I'll ask you this one as well.
Yeah, so I agree with both Scott and Jenny. They've provided great answers for this. I don't have too much to add. I think I spoke a bit on that. We, as a case study, we've experienced that. We have better visibility, which we can give better visibility to our supplier, and it allows us to get products in time. We don't have last-minute surprises when our containers get loaded in France, or the supplier is not ready, your pallet was not produced on time, it will not be ready for 3-4 days. The problem with 3-4 days late is that we are unable to get a booking on a ship for that container 3-4 days later. So then you'll be 1-2 weeks later, and then that has a big ripple effect on everything. So better data, better planning. And like Jenny said, our supplier want to support us. They don't want to be out of stock for us. They want the sale. So yeah, it's end-to-end supply chain is much better.
Fantastic. And I'm going to send another question to you, Etienne, to wrap up the Q&A here. So this one's a little bit of a thought provoker. Do you think your inventory is an asset or a liability? And has that changed since you've implemented Netstock?
Yeah, that's it. That is a great question. It's always a debate between finance department and sales department, and they want more stock. Finance department always wants less, and we are kind of in the middle, trying to juggle everything. So I think that I'll speak for Australis on this one. And as Australis, there was a bit of a culture where we did think of our inventory as a liability. We were scared to be overstocked. There was always this fear that it was not going to sell. Maybe it's because we sell perishable items, so we didn't want to have excess stocks. But I think that during the transition with Netstock, and it's the tools that it's giving us, and especially the classification module, we know that our money is spent on product, the products that are fast moving, and that bring us the most of the revenue. And those tools really give us the confidence that our stock today on hand is an asset that needs to give us a return. So yeah, I think it's changed a lot.
Great, fantastic, Etienne. And that brings us to our second poll for the day. So I'll put the same question out to our audience today. Is your inventory an asset or liability for your business? Okay, so we're getting lots of responses in. A lot of people saying both, which is a fair call. And 40% are saying it's an asset. So it's good to see that people aren't seeing it as a liability. All right, let's see how those results. We've got most people answering. So yeah, 58% said both, and 42% thought it as an asset. Interesting results. All right. So what I'll do now is, hopefully that's sharing the screen again. I'm going to jump into a quick demo of Netstock. What Jenny and Scott and Etienne have been talking about today. As somebody who's onboarded Netstock for so many years, it ticks a lot of those boxes that have been spoken about today. So I'm going to try and take the opportunity to show just a little touch of what Netstock can do. So a little bit more about Netstock is that we've got currently over 18,000 active users around the world. It's an anytime, anywhere, so it's cloud-based. You can log in on your phone or your tablet. If you're sitting on the beach, you can still be managing your inventory with Netstock. Combined, we've got over 100 years of inventory management experience in our teams, and we've got over 2,200 customers worldwide, managing $17 billion, over $17 billion worth of inventory. That's Australian dollars. So I will, with that, jump into, and I might turn off my camera just because I'll be looking at my other screen. So this is a typical dashboard that Netstock has, which identifies the KPIs, the important bits of your business that you want to be able to easily identify. So Jenny and Scott spoke about being able to analyze the data and see the information quickly. Jenny spoke about doing the weekly reviews, and particularly with these the 4 key elements here of what products you've stocked out, your potential stock outs, surplus orders, and excess. The surplus orders is a really quick win that you can have with your business to free up capital. If you can delay a delivery or cancel an order that's no longer required, you can free up that inventory really, or that extra money really quickly. And Netstock gives you all of that information very quickly on the dashboard. You can drill through to the full report from either of these sections and get to see all of the items. There's 55 items that are currently in surplus at this location, and we can deal with multiple locations around the system. Fill rate was also mentioned. So this is your service level to the customers, where you've started and what you're trying to achieve. So we're currently on a 92% fill rate here, and our target is 94.5. A lot of people come in thinking, oh, our service level needs to be 100%, which unfortunately isn't possible. It's not an actual realistic goal set, but we do have a lot of customers achieving 97 or 98% fill rate with using Netstock, and still being able to reduce their inventory like the Australis Food Group has. Another thing that we've been working on and trying to get into the AI space in Netstock is our opportunity engine. So we've got this new panel in the navigation panel here, new option, called opportunities. And if we click on this, it will identify the highest value items where it's identified that there's something wrong. It could be that there's a stock out. It could be that you've got surplus on order. So this one here is saying that we've got a purchase order that's overdue at this location, and it's been outstanding for 59 days with an approximate order value of $67,000. $932,000. So it's telling you basically to what you should do and where we should go from here. If this isn't a useful information for you, you can use the thumbs up or thumbs down to indicate that. And so it'll start to learn from your responses what you should be. And you can choose to look at just your own location. So perhaps you're a branch manager and you're just interested in a single location. You can just click on that one location. You can also mute locations that you're not interested in. So if you do look after several, but not the others, you can mute those. So as we run through, it tells you all of the new opportunities that come up each day. Here's another one where it's on track to run out of stock. And this would be a potential stock out that you would have seen on the dashboard list. But it's actually saying that they've found that you've already placed a purchase order, but it will not arrive on time. And so maybe you can then contact your supplier if it hasn't already been put on the boat. It might be an opportunity to air freight that to make sure that it comes in on time. So it runs through all of these and it will learn from your responses on whether you think these were useful or not. And we're adding to this functionality with each dev run. We're building up the way that the opportunity engine works for our customers. And of course, one of the really important things in Netstock is the ability to do the classification. So this allows us to focus on those key items. In this particular location, it seems like we're in a real imbalance here with our Pareto matrix. The majority of our items are sitting in the C-low, which is the bottom 4% of turnover and value. And we've only got a handful of really key important items in the AH. You can see the stock value here is significantly out of balance as well. We've got a lot of money invested in these C-lows, and these could be part of something that we could review with the slow moving and obsolete item review that Jenny spoke about to help get those out of stock, perhaps actually make the decision that you don't want to range those anymore. So we can drill through into these by just clicking on the hyperlink, and it will open up a full list of the items in that. You can download them to Excel if you wish to do further analysis and sort of fix up those items that perhaps maybe you shouldn't be ranging or reducing the amount of stock that you have on hand for those. So with that classification and being able to target those important items, the AH items, the AHIs, we can also set policies in Netstock to ensure that we're setting the right level of replenishment cycle or the target fill rate. So we may want to have a much higher target fill rate for these items sitting here in the AH than we do in the C-low. Like we might want to just drop the C-low down to 70% because they're really not terribly important to our business. So Netstock allows you to do all of that and really with just a few clicks get some really good intelligence and data and information that you can utilize to rebalance your stock. And of course, if we're stocking out in or have potential stock outs in our AH items, that's obviously something we need to work on as well to make sure that we're bringing those service levels up and keeping our customers happy with those important items. And in addition to that, we spoke about the supplier performance. Netstock also has a supplier performance module. So I've just drilled into one of our top suppliers in this demo instance. And we can see that most of the transactions, so this is the overall stats at each location, looks like they just deliver into our main warehouse here. And so we've got the products that are supplied, the inventory value, the safe stock that we've actually calculated and holding products, the average safety stock days, and then a calculated supply risk based on their data performance. Did they supply on time and in full? And then we can drill down further into this to see what their performance has been like historically. And we've got tables here, which we can then again export into spreadsheet if we want to do further analysis if needed. We can do look at this, what overdue. So we can see that there are some, we're dated here August last year. We can see that there's some orders that are significantly past due that we need to address. If we've got open orders, they'll show here, and again we can drill into the details of those orders and where they're coming from. And the really fancy bit, the bit that I love most about this, is the future order recommendations. So this is giving us that 12-month projection of looking at what Netstock can, what you would be expecting, so our forecast to our suppliers to order. And you can view this, if there was multiple locations, you could view it for all locations with the total, and then we can get the summary by month. And this is the really nice view that allows us to see what we're going to order each month for the next 12 months from that supplier. And this again can be downloadable to a CSV file that you can then send through to your supplier to help with their planning and also building that relationship. So there's so much on offer here. Of course, forecasting capabilities. We can look at the forecast and where you've got business knowledge, that 20% that can't be done by the computer. You can amend and adjust those forecasts at a macro level, or filter by group or category. Perhaps you just want to focus on products from a particular supplier, so we can apply those filters, or you can actually drill down to an individual item and look at it at that level. And if we drill into this item, we can see that we've got a safety stock panel here, which part of what we use to calculate the dynamic safety stock level is the supply risk and the forecast risk. So these are critical and key to understanding how much safety stock we should be holding, in addition to, of course, our service level or our target fill rate that we want to achieve for this product. We do also consider the replenishment cycle and the lead time, which are both short in this instance. So this looks like it's a local supplier that we can get the goods quite quickly, 7-day lead time. We're ordering weekly, but there's a bit of a risk there in the forecast. We can see in the sales history that it's been very erratic without much sort of pattern or that. So we've calculated quite a high forecast risk there, and we're therefore generating a reasonably high safety stock in comparison to the lead time and replenishment cycles. So this will change for every item from that supplier, potentially based on their supplying performance results. And we drill into the supplier performance in this tab. Not a great example here because I don't have any data, but it's calculated an average lead time of just 3 days, but we're planning 7. So there will be a bit of an offset there if we had sufficient data points to capture on this particular item. And last but not least, I'm running out of time for sure. We've also introduced the exec dashboard, which gives a high-level overview summary for your whole business. So there's a tab here, which I think we've already done a webinar or a demo on the exec dashboard. So given that we've only got 5 minutes left, I want to leave time for everybody to ask their questions. So thank you for that, and I'll turn my camera back on. And all right, so if we've got any questions, please enter them into the Q&A section. And we've got a couple here. The first question I think Scott may have answered, but I'll run through that as well. How do the panelists see the limit of Netstock in a less than optimal demand forecast environment? Can Netstock really offset a lack in the demand forecast visibility? So Scott, you replied to that one already. Inventory optimization relies.
That was
it
different.
That one? Oh, different one? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So does anybody want to have a Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Less optimal demand forecasting environment. So I'll give you my view, but definitely happy to pick Jenny and Etienne's view as well. Look, at the end of the day, if your forecast is wrong, it's going to be wrong. There's no magic tool that's going to fix an incorrect forecast. So a few things. There's application of better process and better technology to getting the forecast correct. But if I take the question, exactly as it's written, the assumption is, well, your forecast is going to be rubbish. What can Netstock do to resolve it? I think the value that we see in these sorts of tools is it generates a safety stock calculation that responds to the level of forecast error or demand variability. So what it gives you is the data to go to senior management and the leaders and say, this is how much stock we would have to hold or are holding to meet the customer service levels that we want because of the forecast issue. So there's your burning platform to actually put some time, resource, money into fixing. If it's a really scary number, then that's that magic. How many times have you had projects where it's, I want to improve forecast accuracy, but I can't get a business case for it? Well, that's part of your business case. So that's how we use that. We don't, we can't magically fix the forecast, but we use it as a nice fact-based discussion around what the benefit of fixing the forecast would be. So let's go spend some money and try and fix it.
Okay. Jenny or Etienne, did you either of you want to add to that?
Nothing to it. I think it was covered pretty well.
Thanks, Scott.
I think.
Oh yeah, Etienne.
I liked what Jenny said before. She said that tools like Netstock give us visibility to take actions, to delay an order or to make it to do an urgent order. And I think that when you have forecast inaccuracy, it gives you the information. It tells you, hey, you've sold more than expected. You are going to be there's a potential stock out during that time. We work with really long lead times, 4 to 4.5 months at times. And we like to know that in January, on the 15th of January, I might be out of stock. And if I talk to my supplier about this, and I say, hey, I might need to change a pallet on one of my containers that I've already placed because I've sold more or because the forecast seems to be changing, we can take better actions and quicker. So it fixes the problem before it even becomes a problem.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Etienne. Yeah. Okay. And the other question that we have, we've only got 1 minute left, so maybe I can just get one of you to put your thoughts here. So what has been a driver in your respective industry to develop, invest in better data management, a more sophisticated data-driven world? How do you see your SCM competitive and responsive? How do you keep your SCM competitive and responsive?
I can cover that from our perspective. So for us,
Thanks,
obviously,
Jenny.
it's we put a lot of effort to make sure that we have enough stock when our competitors didn't. And by us actually using more this proactive and planning tactics and everything, more dynamic software and running more dynamic supply chain, we actually had the stock when our competitors didn't, and we're growing the business. That was the best implication of all these softwares and everything that we could do. We had visibility and we could act on it very, very quickly, quicker than everyone. So yes.
Fantastic. Great. Well, I hope that's answered those questions, and I hope this has been a useful presentation or webinar for everybody. Thank you all for attending. Really appreciate Scott, Jenny and Etienne taking their time to give their insights and share their knowledge. We've got, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to email me. I have Jenny and Etienne's LinkedIn profiles here, and we can share that with you. And then we also have our professional services manager, Mark Hopkins. They're also available if you would like to reach out if you're an existing Netstock customer and you want to utilize the system more than perhaps what you are now to try and get the benefits that Etienne and his company have seen. Please feel free to reach out. All right. Thank you all.